Hello, everyone. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and I am Cece Shatz. You're listening to the Going Solo with Cece show, and I am so pleased to have you here with us tonight. Those of you that know me, you know that I'm the Doyenne of Relationship Building, and what that means is I really connect you with some pretty awesome people, helping you through some of the darkest and painful times of your life, going through relationship loss, and then through that transition of dating, and then dating, and maybe really just establishing a new life that you choose. And that's what's important, is really establishing a life that you want to, move yourself through. And that's what it's all about right here on Going Solo Network. So let's do some homework. You guys know it. Our website is right there. It's goingsolomedia.com. All of our wonderful shows are on there. And if you want to email me, my email is goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. So let's get on with our show, because we've got a lot going on here tonight. We have a wonderful guest here with us. We're going to cover divorce. Now, everyone knows that divorce, relationship loss, it's really probably one of the most painful and scary things that we go through, right? Because we don't know where our future lies. But we have a wonderful guest here with us tonight. We're going to bring her on board. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Oh, it is great having you. I have been excited about having you here on the show. We have with us a wonderful guest. She's one of our elite, and it's Kristina Feher, and she's a family law attorney from St. Petersburg. But more than just that, she also does bankruptcy and small business matters. But I love having you right here in our hometown of St. Petersburg, Florida. It is just a joy to have you. But tell us a little bit about your journey, because to decide that you want to be a family law attorney, that you want to help people through some painful times in their life, not just divorce, but also through the bankruptcy, the unknown of your finances, and then maybe even some of the business, small businesses, because that kind of ties in sometimes with the divorce as we're splitting our assets and things like that. So what kind of made you go on this path, this journey in your own life, helping others through this very difficult time?
Well, Cece, I'm just so thrilled to be here, and thank you for having me. When I was little, I always wanted to be a lawyer. So I never really went through that phase of wanting to be a doctor or wanting to be a teacher. I think maybe when I was younger, I wanted to be a mermaid for a little bit. But when I found out that wasn't really a good career fit, I always wanted to be a lawyer. And so that was definitely the plan A going through it. So I just kind of worked my way through high school here in St. Pete, and then college in Miami, and then law school up in Michigan. And when I finally became an attorney, headed quickly back down to Florida. While I graduated from college, I actually started bartending. And I loved the ability of having to work with my customers, craft them cocktails, talk to them. And as a bartender, you're actually counseling people for a really long time while they're sitting at your bar. They're telling you about their day. If they're regulars, they're coming in frequently. So I was counseling people, talking to them about their day, and it felt natural. It felt comfortable. Also, before then, I was a dance teacher. So I was teaching people and communicating with them and explaining things to them. Before that, my parents are actually immigrants. So I'm a non native English speaker, but I spent a lot of time either reading mail or going through the newspaper with my parents and explaining and translating and putting things into words for them so they could understand it. So it seems like I've actually been explaining, communicating, listening, and counseling for most of my life before I became a lawyer. And here I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't realize that you had actually helped your parents like that.
Mhm.
And that's amazing. That is just so nice. The thing is that you know, being an attorney is really truly a very helpful there's more facets of being an attorney, I know, but it's like being a doctor or being, some sort of healthcare person or whatever. You're in the field of helping people, and you're helping them going through a very, very tough time in their life. A lot of times they don't know whether they're coming or going, as we go through divorce. And so what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about starting your divorce and what you need to know. And I thought you would be a perfect person for this because, as we are looking at, we've got two facets of going through divorce. We've decided jointly that we're going to be getting divorced and we're going to work it out, and go to someone such as yourself and try to get that wheel moving. Or we've been served and then we're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? So what do we do at the beginning of a divorce? How do we start this and do it in a way, Kristina, where we can maybe save some money, save some pain, and just take away the fear that we go through when we start this? So maybe you could help us a little bit with that.
Definitely, definitely. So I actually am a collaborative law trained attorney. And so what that means is I've taken courses and I've sat for a certification for the collaborative law process. And a lot of people don't know about the collaborative law process, but it hits on exactly what you said, Cece. And that's talking about getting through to the divorce with less pain, with less hurt, and hopefully for a little less cost. So through the collaborative law process, there's a team of people working to help you and your spouse get from point A to point B, which is finalizing your divorce. And the way that works is through a series of meetings. So you would have an attorney and your spouse would have an attorney. And then the team is also comprised of a financial neutral who's going to help us go through the assets, the incomes, the deductions, talk about support, alimony, child support, as well as a mental health professional. And they help facilitate, run the meetings, and make sure that nobody's misheard or that there aren't any communication problems. So with that team and through a series of a handful of meetings, you should be able to go from, we want to get this done without a lot of pain and a lot of cost, through now we have an agreement, we're going to sign it and finalize everything with the court. So that's one great way that an attorney, especially a collaborative law trained attorney, can help you with that process. As Cece said, there's that, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I love that. I do very much. I love that. It's like putting a team together, isn't it? To be able to,
and it is.
Walk
and
through.
Let's use the best professionals for the job. Because yes, I can tell you about the law, and yes, I can counsel you about your rights, but there's something different that a mental health professional can bring to the table that I think is really important if we want to keep the level of pain and hurt to a minimum.
Right. Yeah, I think that in now today's world, we are looking at changing the face of divorce. We're looking at, if this is the path we're going to go on, if we are going to be separated, we are going to be divorced, that we're looking at it with clearer eyes as to how can we make this division in the most effective way possible for our families. And that's very important. And so, tell us a little bit about establishing a team. And what I like so much about what you do is the fact that you have the ability and the expertise for the bankruptcy part. So you can look at the finances and see, do we need to look at, the house and do we need to sell the house, or do we need to do various different things to maybe avoid bankruptcy, or maybe we do need to go through bankruptcy. And the same thing with having a business. We don't talk about that enough. If you have a business, the division of it. So let's back it up a little bit. Now, the very first thing that I know that we have to do is we have to gather up our paperwork, right?
Yes.
And figure out what our assets and our debts are. And then there's a document that we have to fill out, right? And present to the court. What is that? Explain that a little bit.
So the very first document you want to have filled out is a petition. And the great thing about Florida is they've done a really great job of having forms available. So if you're going to handle your divorce yourself, you can actually go to the Florida Supreme Court's website and download the form. They have a few different forms. So they have a petition if you and your spouse have minor children, so they're still under 18, or if you and the other spouse don't have children, but you have some property that needs to be divided. Or there's a petition if you don't have minor children and you don't have property that needs to be divided. So those forms are available on the Florida Supreme Court's website. That's the first thing you need to do.
Mm-hmm. And so when they're getting these forms and they're starting to fill them out and they have some confusion because you do get confused. You want to make sure that you're doing everything properly. They can then approach someone such as yourself to be able to look at some of those documentations and be able to figure out what they need to do. But I know that there's a financial affidavit, right? That you have to fill out. And that's very crucial. And I'd like to ask you a little bit about that because there's some confusion on the financial affidavit when I talk to other people. So let's get your to-go information on that, on the financial affidavit.
There is so much confusion on the financial affidavit, and it is just not one of those documents that's created for the average Joe to fill out. Lawyers go to law school. We take extra classes to figure out how to do this. So it's just really important that you want to get this document done right. And the reason is because if you're dealing in a case that has property to split up, alimony that you want to pay or be paid to you, or child support that you are going to pay or receive, all three of those things are impacted by the way you list things on your financial affidavit. So doing that wrong and putting asset values that aren't correct, not calculating your income correctly, could be a huge disaster to your case. You could end up paying more in child support than you need to. You could end up getting less money for your share of the equity of your marital home if you don't calculate things properly. So the financial affidavit is so easy to mess up because it's overwhelming. If you make over $50,000 a year, that form is 11 pages long. So there's a lot of room for error there.
Right. Yeah. And that's why it's kind of scary to do that a little bit by yourself. It's a good idea maybe to get the copy, and start doing your homework, getting things together. But wouldn't you say that it's a good idea, like, to have backup documentation? So if you have these particular figures, if you're saying the house is worth this, then maybe you need to have maybe appraisal done or something like that, right? To kind of back that up a little bit.
Yes, definitely. And lawyers love, and by extension, then judges love factual paperwork. So when you're talking about how your income was calculated, courts are going to want to see your tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs. If there's any type of unique situation with your income, if you're only on commission, they're going to want to look at how that's been calculated. Tax returns are important. All of your schedules to your tax return is important. IRA or 401k statements. Those are things that we all know that we should have and we should have a grasp on, but I'm pretty sure if we checked, it's been a while since we've saved one, put it on our computer, scanned it, read it, reviewed it, and know what it actually says. So having your paperwork, understanding your paperwork, and saving your paperwork in a smart place is just really good practice that everyone should be doing, whether we're going through a divorce or not.
That's excellent advice because so often we don't have that information together. So really every year we should get a folder and just evaluate what we have and make sure we have everything that's up to date. And that way, if you ever need to like pick up and go really quick, you can grab it. It's got your account numbers on it. It's got everything on it, and you would have everything really handy right there. So that's actually a great bit of advice right there. So let's talk a little bit about the expenses because this comes across on my divorce support group a lot. For instance, they start splitting up, right? And they're going through some hard times financially. So they stop doing the things that they normally do. And I remember, when I went through my divorce, that the judge said that you should have a lifestyle that's accustomed to what you're used to.
Right.
So if your lifestyle shouldn't change because you're getting a divorce, and
Right.
I'm sure she didn't mean that, you go to Riviera and you do all these, wonderful things. But what she's saying is that you should at least be able to do the certain things. Well, a lot of those that are going through the divorce group now, they tend to really stop expending the money on themselves. They stop doing, getting their hair cut, and they don't buy their clothes, and they do various different things like that. So when you're filling out this financial affidavit, shouldn't you put in what you normally would spend, and then maybe use your previous bank statements as like a backup to, yes, I got my nails done every month and this is what I spent, or every other week, or whatever you do? Would that be a good advice for them?
So that's a really tough question. And I realize it's really important. The hard part is the financial affidavit has to be a snapshot of what you're currently spending. And sometimes when people are going through a divorce and maybe they're expecting alimony or they're expecting child support to come in, but it hasn't, and they don't know when it's going to, I can understand how that might make it tough for someone to feel that it's okay, or to feel like they have the disposable income to go and get their hair done or their nails done or to have a meal out. So that's the tricky part, is that until there is an court order or an adjudication that they know that money is going to be coming in, it's going to make it tough to spend the money when they know on paper and in their bank statement that it's just not there anymore.
Yeah. So then it's hard to fill out your financial affidavit kind of correctly, because you're supposed to write down what it is you're actually spending, but if you cut back so severely, it's hard to do that. So
It's
again, I
going to
think.
show a decreased amount of expenses, but then you could also make a argument for it in your request for alimony and or child support as to why you need it or what you did cut back on. A lot of times it's not just the hair and nails and eating out that gets cut, but things like tutoring for your child, extracurricular activities, counseling, therapy, all of those are still really important to our health, our self-care and our health care. And sometimes those get cut too. So you want to make sure that you're having a really clear idea of what the expenses did include beforehand and what you've had to cut back on now and what your financial affidavit shows.
That's excellent advice. That's something definitely that they would need to go to, I think, a professional like you to be able to explain that, so that when it comes time to make those decisions, as far as money goes, you can help explain what the situation truly is. Yeah, I think
Definitely.
that's really good advice. Now, let me ask you. This is something else that comes up all the time. It's like, okay, they're separated, right?
Right.
Should they have like some sort, and they have children, let's say they have children, should they have some sort of like separate agreement, some sort of agreement taking place, while the process of divorce is happening? Because how do you determine, like temporary child support, or how do you determine those kind of fundings and things like that?
Sure. So, what I can tell everybody is I am licensed only in Florida, so I can only speak to Florida laws, and nothing I'm saying is legal advice for your situation. But what I can say is that Florida doesn't recognize separation. So, we really don't do separation agreements. However, if you have children, what you want to do is you want to start, for the benefit of the children, getting them into a routine. So, whatever that routine is going to look like, you want to start that. That's going to be helpful for the children, especially because they need routine and schedules, and also for both parents involved. You can start kind of planning days and weekends and extracurriculars, and then get back to doing the things that are important for you by setting up some kind of schedule. And a court's going to want to look at what is the status quo? What have you all been doing for the last 2 months? since this case was filed? Or what have you been doing in the last 6 months since you've been separated? The court's going to want to follow that. And it doesn't have to be a formal agreement. I've seen people who take, a planner from the dollar store that has a calendar on it and just say, this week's moms, this week's dads, this week's moms, this week's moms, or however, and separate it out that way. Have a text message, share a Google Calendar, just something that everybody can refer to and understand what the schedule is. That's going to be the best step forward for then going forward to show, here's what we've been doing.
Yeah, I like the idea that it's in writing too. So that way it's kind of clear. There's no
Yes.
mistake, no misunderstanding. But we all understand what's happening. So yeah, that's really good advice. Absolutely great advice. What we're going to do is let's take a quick break. And so when we come back, let's talk a little bit about mediation and some of those other things, because that's always a hot topic. What is mediation? Why is it important? And I know here in Florida, we have a mediation that is kind of required. So let's talk about that when we come back. Okay.
Great.
That'll be wonderful. Well, we're back. Welcome back. My name is Cece Shatz. I'm the host here of Going Solo with Cece. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are the #1 internet singles network, talk network. So we're so happy to be back here with you today. We have a wonderful guest here with us. She's been so kind to wait during the commercials. We have Kristina Feher, if I can say it correctly, Feher. And we're talking about divorce, one of those most difficult times that we go through. And we've been talking a lot about on the first half that she's a collaborative attorney, that she also is a family law attorney, bankruptcy and small business matters is her specialty. And she's right here in our hometown of St. Petersburg, Florida. So we are so pleased to have her. But the first part of the show, Kristina, we talked a little bit about kind of like the petition that you would need to file. We talked about the financial affidavit, but let's go into talking a little bit about mediation. People are always a little bit confused about mediation. So let's maybe you could explain it a little bit more to us.
Sure. First, I'm going to say why we have mediation. And so, different states and different countries handle divorces differently. That's why I kind of gave that premise earlier that said I'm only licensed in Florida, so I only know what Florida does. But in other states and other countries, there's actually a cooling off period between the time you file for your divorce and the time that things can actually happen during the divorce. So, mediation in Florida is required, and most judges, especially our judges here in Pinellas County and Pasco County, require you to go to mediation and complete a mediation before you can bring any of your issues before a judge. Obviously, if there's significant concerns about safety or the welfare of children, that's one thing. But most of the times, the judge is going to make you go through mediation before you address questions such as temporary child support, temporary alimony, and who gets the house. That being said, here's what the process of mediation is for. It's to give you and the other side an opportunity with a neutral third party time and opportunity to discuss your issues to see if you can come up with any resolution. And so maybe you can agree to a parenting schedule for your children, but you can't decide who's going to get the house. That would be just one small thing that you could accomplish at mediation. In some mediations, you all have really had a chance to think of the sense of what you want. You're able to sit down with the mediator, hash out an entire agreement. That's awesome because then it just gets you on a quick path to getting your divorce finalized and moving forward with your life. Even if mediation isn't successful and you and your other spouse aren't able to come to a decision, it could be a really great start to communication as to who wants what and what you might be willing to give up in order to get the divorce finalized. So, that neutral third party is sometimes an attorney, sometimes they're CPAs, sometimes they're just people who are really interested in the law. And then most court systems have a mediation program that you can utilize at a lower cost, or you can go out and pick your mediator through a private mediation, know who you're getting, what you're getting, and the cost of what you're getting. But there's definitely an increased cost with selecting your own mediator.
Okay. Now, the mediator, is that something that both parties have to agree on, the person, or?
So if you do not have an attorney and the other side doesn't have an attorney, they're probably just going to assign a mediator to you. And that mediator, before being assigned, is going to double check to make sure that they don't have a conflict with either one of you. They didn't go to school with one of you, they didn't date the other person. But if you have a private mediation, you can select it. And if you have an attorney and they have an attorney, usually the two attorneys can agree to who the mediator is. But don't worry, if they can't, what then usually happens is one attorney will select a mediator, the other attorney will select a mediator, and those two mediators will select the mediator that you actually end up using.
Wow, that's great because I never knew how that worked. So that's really good information because so many people ask me that. How does this work with the mediator? And they're a little fearful of it. But a mediator
Sure.
can actually help you to kind of work some of these issues out so that you don't have to, go through court where you're arguing and fighting. You're actually trying to get things worked out on paper and such. Now, let me ask you, so if you go to a mediator and let's say you are able to work out all of those issues, right? And then you come up with an agreement. Is this agreement that like, let's say one party would hire you,
Mhm.
then do they take it back to you to look at, to evaluate, or do you write up the agreement?
So, what would happen is if I was an attorney representing the spouse at mediation, I go with you to mediation. And that can be very helpful too. I think a lot of people are scared and nervous about mediation because they don't know what it is, they haven't been through it before. And that's a good thing. If you're really great at mediation and divorce mediations, that might be a different concern. So, a lot of it's just the fear of the unknown. But one of the great things about hiring an attorney is they can prepare you for it. And so I can tell you, and we can talk about strategies. What are some things that you're willing to accept? What are some things that you might be okay if you didn't get to keep? What are you willing to trade for something that you really, really want? And so setting up and having those conversations before mediation can help a client get prepared, maybe be a little less fearful. If we come to an agreement at mediation, it's written up right there. Either the mediator or one of the attorneys will type it up. Everybody signs it and it gets filed with the court that day. So it is ready to go, all, move to go, collect your $200 and definitely head towards finalizing your mediation. So the good thing is there is no delay of going, reviewing agreements. And so that in that instance, it might be important or it might be a smart decision to see if you can hire maybe an attorney just to handle your mediation.
That's a good idea. Now, let's say you did sign it, but then you slept on it and you changed your mind. What happens then?
Oh, that is a bad night of sleep.
Yeah.
So sadly, that's the hard part is once you've signed the agreement, it is binding. It's a contract and there's no changing it unless you can prove there was some type of fraud or duress or some kind of improper will, which is going to be kind of tricky because if you have a lawyer there and there's a neutral mediator there and they didn't see any of those things, you're going to be stuck with that agreement. So that's why having a good prep beforehand, having a good attorney who can prepare you for it to have you think about those things is going to be important.
Yeah. What's important that I just caught that I think that really is important to share is the mindset of going into mediation with thinking we're going to have an agreement here. We're going to come to some sort of resolution about the division of things. And
Right.
And I think like if you can cover the hard parts like alimony and child support and some of the things like that, and some of those things are statute based in Florida, right?
Right.
Yeah. So some of that stuff you don't even need to argue because it's already statute, and so it's going to be kind of the way it is. But so you just need to decide on mom's china and who gets a sofa, those kind of things. And if you rack up a bill that's going to cost you more than a sofa fee, why are you arguing over the sofa?
Right.
You buy a new sofa, right?
Right. But not everybody wants to buy a new sofa, Cece. They want that sofa. And so that's sometimes why a good lawyer can really, like you said, let's talk about the mindset. Is it a thing that you can go out and buy another one for? If we're really talking about moving forward and having this new life or having this different life, wouldn't you want a different sofa anyway? One that you picked out by yourself versus one that maybe has bad memories. And
Right.
so if we're just talking about stuff, that's one thing. Obviously, mom's china is going to be irreplaceable. Maybe that's a different argument. Maybe we have to talk about whose mom gave who the china. So that might be a little different. And then also the house. That's usually the toughest question of who's going to get the house, who's going to keep the house. And there's a lot of conversation we could have about that. But a lot of times it's don't spend unnecessary time and stress and money if you have an attorney arguing about the stuff that you could just go out and buy.
Right. And I think too, it's important because you have that expertise in finances. So you can kind of look at, I've often said a house is, even though we do have some emotional attachment to our homes, but
Right.
it's one of the biggest financial investments that we have. And so we have to look at it from a financial investment. And if you're moving, if you're going to be living by yourself, do you want this great big house? Do you want this expense? Do you want this maintenance? It could be more of a burden than anything else. So I think with having your expertise to point out some of these issues, to determine, what do you really truly want? Would you rather, get compensated, sell out or do whatever? There's the different transactions you can take place with that. So it's
Absolutely.
yeah, so there's so many open-ended things here for it. I love the idea that you look at divorce, um, not even though it's a painful situation, it's not one that we want anyone to experience. We truly
Right.
don't. I think attorneys feel the same way. We don't want people to experience it. However, if you are, let's try to do it in the less painful and the safest way possible,
Right.
without harming ourselves, without causing our families this huge division. And so your like your biggest asset tickets, your those finance tickets are important, but then your children are important. And
So
so
important.
yeah, and I think sometimes going to someone like yourself, Kristina, that is looking at divorce in a different way, looking at trying to save families and
Yeah.
trying to get through life a little bit gentler is truly important. So yeah, absolutely. You do a great job. Let's
Thank
share
you.
with everyone how they can get a hold of you. If they live in Florida, of course, you don't handle anything outside of the state of Florida.
Correct.
And you do a lot of now because of COVA, right?
Yes.
You are doing a lot of work at home,
All
and
the work is at home.
that's right. So you've got her attention, her full
Yes.
attention, because we work harder, I think, when we're at home.
I think so too. Yes.
We actually do. So we want to make sure that we got your information here. But of course, the law firm is right there. It's FEHERLAW.com. And so
Yes,
we want
we
to make
are on Facebook. You can friend us on Facebook. We post blogs on our website, a lot of frequently asked questions there. So sometimes it's uncomfortable, or sometimes you're up late and you're thinking about this sort of stuff. Stop by our website, check out our blog, check out our frequently asked questions, connect with me on LinkedIn. We are a technology friendly law firm. So you can text that phone number right there. If you're not sure if you want to give us a call, you can text us and kind of feel it out that way. You can contact us through our website. You can send us a Facebook message. We can Zoom and do our introduction that way. We handle telephone consultations. We are really flexible in this time nowadays, that we want to make sure that people are getting their questions answered, that people have the information they need to make the best decision for themselves. And we want to make sure that we're available for people to do that.
Yeah, that's great. I did check out your website, and it is very, very easy to get through. All the information is right there. You click on, and if you go into our website, Going Solo Media, on her Elite page, we have your Elite
Yay.
page up. We've also put in the scheduler, so it'll go straight into her contact page. You just click the button.
Awesome.
We've got a button there for her website. You click that. It takes you right in, so you can look at all the blogs and everything that you have there. So very easily done. So I want to make sure that everyone can get that information. I want to say the phone
Fantastic.
number. So when we drop into the audio and do the
Sure.
podcast, you guys have it. It's 727-359-0367. Again, that's 727-359-0367. And one thing I noticed too that Kristina, you had said, is that you don't necessarily have to um, go the full gamut, with the divorce with you. You're willing to help people where they need to be helped. And so
Right.
if there's something they need, like the financial affidavit they need assistance with, mediation they need assistance with, if doing that agreement, for the court, you can help with that. So there's various different aspects, filing the petition if they need help with that. You can go from A to Z, right?
Yes.
So
And that's the great thing. As a solo practitioner, it's just myself and one staff member. So we can create the help that you need in terms of payment and structure that might benefit a whole bunch of different people, or different budgets, or different concerns. I am also born and raised in St. Pete. So this is my community. You guys raised me to be a lawyer. So I definitely want to give back. So we do that by structuring different types of payment options, different types of payment things that you can cover. Like Cece said, if you want us to review your paperwork, if you want help calculating your financial affidavit, if you want us to just appear with you at mediation, we can do all of those things and we can discuss what's going to be best for your situation.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely, you're changing the face of divorce and helping families, go through this in a whole way versus so much pain and agony that they might very well go through and cause harm to their families. And so if we're going to make this division, let's just make it as more efficiently as we possibly can and effectively. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. Christina, I want to thank you so much for being on the show here with us today. We're about ready to wrap up. Are there any closing words you'd like to share with our audience?
No, if you have questions, please reach out to someone who knows the law. Sometimes we get wrapped up in what happened in our friends' cases or what another person told us. Get it straight from the horse's mouth. Do your homework, find yourselves an experienced attorney who knows what they're talking about, and just ask them your questions. I know it's scary, but not all lawyers are that scary. So please reach out. And I wish everyone going through this struggle the absolute best.
Wow, thank you so much. Again, this is Kristina Feher, and we want to make sure that you guys have her website. It's www.feherlaw.com. Phone number is 727-359-0367. Again, did I leave something off?
No.
Okay. And again, everything is right up on our goingsolomedia.com website. Just click on her name. It's right there on the elite guest, and the links are there. So you can just click them and go straight into her website, and you don't have to memorize it if you can't. So no worries with that. Well, I want to thank you so much. The time has gone by very, very quickly. And it's just there's so much information when we're going through this time in our lives that we can share. But I want to thank you so much for making it easier on the couples and the families, being able to go through it. So thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Cece.
It's wonderful having you. Well, you guys, time went by so fast. I can't believe it. Here we are at the end of the show. Of course, you guys know how to reach me at goingsolomedia.com. My email is goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. You can find all of the things that we do on our goingsolonetwork.com, which has everything that we do right there. So you want to connect with us. We love you. We hope that these shows are helping you get through to the other side of where you want to be. We want you to be empowered. We want you to live your life of the way you choose. And that's what's so important to us. So this is the Going Solo with Cece show. I am Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I hope that you enjoyed this show as much as I have. And we want to thank so much our guest, Kristina Feher, for joining us here. She's an attorney here in our local town, which is St. Petersburg. So we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I will see you next week. Bye for now.